everybody, the trail's pretty popular, especially on nice days, but they use my paved driveway as a place to have their kids ride their bicycles and everything.
Right. So I guess I'm just wondering if, what else we can do, like for signage wise and, to kind of prevent people from the confusion. Like,
I've talked to Tara a little bit about it, and I'm not. Well, people just don't. You're on this committee, they don't read signs anyway. But I don't want to put big billboards out there saying private driveway and stuff like that. That's why I'm bringing this up. I don't know what to do either.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So I'm wondering, so a couple things I'm wondering is like, what if there was like a sign, like not, a sign with like an arrow, like, entrance to trail, like, to the left, essentially. Do not enter here, main, trail entrance to the left on, the corner of Old Fleet and, South Middlebush. The other thing I'm wondering is like, this might be a silly idea, but I'm wondering, like, would it make sense to like, almost like paint a crosswalk on the driveway that is the section connecting the trail to the other side of the trail? So it's not, I know there's an arrow there, but I was wondering if like paint, a crosswalk paint on that driveway, and that's the only section that people are allowed in, if that might help visually.
Well, I guess one point I'd make here though is that when one looks at Google Maps and Google Earth, the trail is shown as running exactly parallel to the driveway from Old Fleet down to a point where it kind of turns down to the house, right? So there is a section of the trail clearly shown on the Google Maps that shows it being right against the driveway. So I can see why people are getting confused there. Perhaps what we really need to look at is a reroute that takes it completely away from the driveway, if that's an option. I don't know the exact property demarcation lines along there, but I can see why people, if they reach a point where they walk from South Middlebush and Old Fleet, where the farm stand is, and they parallel Old Fleet Road and then make a left at the driveway, which is what they're expected to do, that they think the driveway is part of township, property and part of the trail. So if we could somehow push the trail away from the driveway, perhaps that would make it more clear.
Well, originally, I worked with John Luce about how to, the trail to walk, and I left like a 20-foot barrier between the driveway and that part of the trail you're talking about. And since the township has been cutting I used to cut that trail for years, but since the township started cutting it right at that bend, we're talking along Old Fleet and left at my driveway, the township cut right through to my road. It almost looks like that's where you're supposed to go, instead of not cutting that. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
I follow you. I think we get it. It's if they had left up some high grass or something there, that might be more of a visual indicator, right?
It was always there, but then when the township started cutting that, they made it come straight through because it's easier to get their mowers on there or whatever. But there used to be a sign right at that point where you had to make a left, but it was a little arrow and that was it. I think if maybe a better sign was put to make your left there might help. But the only thing that was ever there was a 2 by 2 inch square with an arrow.
One other question is the property. I'm not very familiar with the exact property boundaries there, but is the property on the opposite side of the driveway, the west side of your driveway, essentially, from where it meets Old Fleet Road? How far back is township property versus private other property, or I'm not that familiar.
Well, Mr. Vornlocker, when when they were going to build the park, that was all going to be straightened out. So I never really concerned myself with it. But now that with the way things are going, who knows if the park's ever going to really take place or even when it is. But no, the path or the trail is grass. You know, it's like nice paved grass, or not paved, smooth grass.
Right, right. But I'm talking on the other side of the driveway, because right now the intent is you walk on the hiking trail, you parallel Old Vliet, and just before you get to your driveway, ideally the person would turn left and continue along the nice mowed grass trail. But if instead they crossed your driveway and went into the trees there and went in for a ways and then made a left and we made it clear somehow to do it differently.
Mark, the driveway goes over the stream, so that there's not like a lot of alternatives for getting from one side of the trail to the other without going over his driveway, because it's also a bridge.
Right, I wouldn't be so concerned about crossing the driveway. I'm trying to keep people off his driveway, like you had pointed out.
No, that's my point. My point is like the driveway is a bridge, so you would need a bridge somewhere else in order to do that.
Well, even so, what you're saying, I understand what he's saying, to go on the other side of the driveway. Well, the other side of the driveway halfway down is private property.
Okay. That's what I wasn't sure about. I don't know those property boundaries that well.
Yeah, no, it's private property. Like if you were walking towards my house, halfway down on the right is all private property.
Okay, that's the part that kind of shows that like a clearing area and stuff.
Yeah. So
I'm using Google Maps, and I'm looking at the satellite view, and I can see that there's a bit of an opening on the right side of the driveway about halfway down.
Yeah, that's where the Catalpa property starts, yes. But they come down, they have to cross. What happens is they come all the way down to where the brook is, then they cross, go onto the driveway for, I don't know, 30 feet to get over that bridge, and then they make a sharp right at that point.
Yes, I can see the sharp. I can see the sharp right they're supposed to make. So anything before they make the sharp right, as they're walking down your driveway before they turn right, on the right-hand side, that's all private property?
On the right side of the driveway, half of that, yes, halfway down from where the hill.
Got it.
So all the woods that you see along the driveway is private property.
Okay, well, so much for that alternative.
Yeah, but it's just like, again, it's not a super problem except for when you have the nice days, and I think people are expecting the park to be done, and I have a few problems with people saying it's that property belongs to the township, so they're allowed to go on there, and that's not the truth at all.
Well, one thing I think that will be helpful to Al, I don't know if I mentioned this to you or not, but we are working on updating our trails maps, and we're going to do them. We're going to talk about it later, but we're going to do them, one by one. When we redo the map of the Franklin Park area and Bunker Hill, we can also kind of make that much more clear on the trails map where the stop should be. So that's one thing we can do. We can't do it overnight, but that is one thing we can definitely do. I don't know. It's hard because with where that's what Al and I had talked about before. He does use the driveway, so it's like we can't even put like a bollard there or anything because he uses it. So I think the better signage is definitely, we have the DPW has the sign shop, so we can try and make a bigger, better sign. That's one thing. The updating of the map, if we do Negri first, that's what we've been working on. Maybe we can try and work on this one immediately following it. And that, you know, that's basically what we talked about. Anybody else have any ideas or like, you know, that are familiar, you know, with this kind of problem?
Well, Tara, like I said, the big part is where the township cuts the trail. They, instead of making a left to go down my driveway, they cut an opening to come right in onto the driveway. And to me, it looks like it was made that way.
Okay,
You know, so
if DP's, yeah, okay.
We could make I don't know, a 10-foot sign saying make a left here. No, I'm only kidding.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just giving you guys something to think about. You know, it's not a super big deal, especially now. Nobody really can go on the trail now. And then a little bit at the bottom of the trail where you cross my driveway is very wet there. And, you know, we have a little bit of rain. Nobody wants to walk in the water.
Yeah.
So just a few things to think.
And I think that would be good for us to address, Tara, as a trail anyway, because for us to, you know, maybe add a little soil there, because you know, it's not good. At that corner where he was talking about, what is it, the tiny sign previously, that gets really mushy, and as well as the part right near the driveway. So if we can kind of do something, have the parks crew do something with the soil there, that might help make it easier to stay on the actual trail properly.
What about the possibility of working with Shade Tree to try and block off the part that the township cut and make it more of a blocked off with like a tree or something?
Mark, and I think that if they just stopped mowing there, it'd probably grow up pretty naturally too. Like everything else there is kind of wild.
Yeah, well, it was always that way, and I never spoke with the township, but it was always a clear pathway to walk. And for some reason or another, they just decided to make it straight through there. But I mean, not a giant sign, but a pretty decent sign. But I mean, I have the vegetable stand at the end, and nobody reads signs. So it's just going to be a challenge.
I was going to say, everyone that uses the trail, do they use that parking area? You don't have any problems with people parking on your driveway or?
No, because that doesn't belong to belongs to the township, but not to Catalpa Farms. And I rent that area from the town, but no, I have no problem at all with it.
Yeah, so I think if, like Vanessa was saying, if that part that the township mows starts to grow up, I think people will naturally go that way. Or maybe a better trail sign that just points an arrow that turn, you know, left. That might.
I agree 100%. You know, there's something that needs to make them make that left.
Okay.
Well, anyway,
Okay, well, that's definitely, yeah, that's definitely something we can talk to DPW about. I can even meet you out there, Al, one day, and you can show me like the exact spot, because, you know, they like to have it staked out, which is no problem. So I can show them the exact spot where, you know, the mowing should not happen, where the cutting of the trail should not happen. And then also I can show, you know, kind of just take a few pictures of the wet areas.
Well, Tara, that would be nice, just so I could concentrate on that instead of Girl Scouts and everything else.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, perfect.
But that would definitely work, so I could just show you the couple points that would help a lot and show you exactly what's going on.
Okay, so we'll work out a time and then I can come out there. I guess we should probably, I mean, do we have to wait for the snow, I'm assuming? Or, I mean, I can really come out. We can work out a good time to come out, and then if I can show DPW like the exact signs and photos, I think that'll help them also.
Okay, well, the snow wouldn't bother us too much because we're not going to be on trails. It's just 2 points which are right on the driveway.
Okay. All right. So then I'll follow up with you tomorrow about a day and time that I can come out, and we'll make that work.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, Al.
Okay, I'm going to cut off with that. I'm meeting whoever I met, and I'm sure we'll talk later.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Thank you.
Coming out. Thank you for bringing it to our
Thank you very
attention.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Therefore. All
Good
right, good
night.
night. Thank you.
All right. And that is it for public attendees.
Wow, sounds like an issue.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think during COVID, he noticed because there was a big influx of people. That's when he really started to notice, those problems.
yeah.
But I think it's good to address because I think it can get contentious. And I had somebody who complained to me about being yelled at for being on the driveway and throwing, dog scat into the dumpster, not realizing that was a private dumpster and a private driveway, So I think the clear signage is going to help both ways.
Yeah, yeah, we've changed the signage there once already, and it's just, yeah, I don't know, maybe we need an even bigger and better sign, it sounds like. But I think also it is true, the way that the trail is cut now, it makes you believe, you're following the right way. So I think, changing that route is going to help.
Tara, I've been looking at the interactive tax map, and I'm not sure it's accurate. If you go to the township map, you see that the trail is actually drawn on that map, and it looks on the current map like all of the trail is in his property.
Are you in there right now?
I can get in there. I think I still.
Okay, no, I can.
Oh, I'm on
If
it.
you had it. Oh, you're on it. If you're in it already, I'll make you the presenter.
Okay.
Hold on. Okay, you should, hold on, it's moving it. Okay, you should be able to share your screen then.
Okay. Let me see.
If you go to the bottom,
Share.
it should
Oh,
say
share content.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Can you pick it up on your screen?
It's coming. It says Chuck Martin is starting to, there you go. Got it.
Okay. All right. All of this area outlined in blue is actually property that's shown as Evelyn Palchek, or yeah, Evelyn Pachalik. And it's sort of confusing anyway, because that's clearly more than 1.3 acres of land. But as you can see, can you see my cursor, which is a hand?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, I'm tracing the trail.
Yeah, it shows it. You're right.
Down through this property, and this entire property, if I can get it back. I mean, the trail looks like it parallels Old Vliet Road, and that comes down on the east side of this driveway, which is apparently what he's referring to, and then it crosses right here and goes in, down again, over toward the golf course. But all of this area is on the map. It says it's Pachalik property. So
right.
I don't even see where Catalpa Farms is. This is township property. No, that's Sylvia Timmer property. This is designated as township property. And this is designated as township property. But all of the rest is Evelyn Pachalik.
Well, yeah, that's Pachalik. They owned Catalpa Farms.
Okay, so but I thought this was the area where the park was going to be.
It is.
Well, it is. Yeah, I think the main problem with this map, you're right, is that the driveway is shown in this like boulder white, I'll call it, for lack of a better term, but the trail is in this like faint white. So it does look like this is the trail, and it says brown trail right by it.
It says brown trail.
it's referring to the fainter white line, and this
That is
white
correct.
line is the driveway, and that is the problem. So
This
people
is
are
the
getting
driveway.
confused.
But
And if
to
you guys-
clarify, to get clarification again, though, it says this parcel is owned by the Evelyn,
Pachalik, yes.
right? But
Uh,
is it or is it not? Somehow, is it preserved farm leased back to them and it's actually owned by the township? Or do they own it and somehow give right of way to the trail? What's the actual ownership situation here?
It looks to me like this, the GIS has not been updated.
Right.
Why don't you show that to
Yeah,
Bob Bornhofer?
I will. Yeah.
okay, well,
So,
yeah.
but to be clear then, the township does own this space and then leases the farming rights as agricultural preserved space back to Mr. Pachalik?
I don't know about the area that he still farms, but I'm pretty sure we own that almost rectangular area going along Arthur Blake Boulevard.
That's on the east side of the driveway.
That is on the east side of Mr. Pachalik's driveway, yes.
This area in here.
Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
look,
And he leases the property from the township as a farm lease. So it's not preserved farmland, it's open space, but he's farming it under a lease.
So Mark, I just want to point out to you on this map, you can see the stream. I was trying to mention that before, how it crosses the driveway. And so if we were to have another entrance to avoid the driveway, you would still need to have crossings of that stream.
Right, so all I was suggesting, but it still requires see how currently the Brown Trail, which
Yep.
is labeled there. It follows Old Fleet Road, then makes a left and follows the driveway.
Yep,
It makes a sharp right at one point along the driveway,
yep,
right? My point was to take the Brown Trail where it's running, it's where it's away from the brown, Chuck, if you could move your mouse to the left, straight left, down to the Brown Trail. Yeah, in that area of the Brown Trail, I just would make that Brown Trail straight out to Fleet Road. Can you bring it back to Fleet Road?
Sure. Well,
I would just take it, I was gonna take, instead of doing the zigzag along the driveway and then the sharp right, why just not take the trail? Yes, it would require people having to find their own way across the streams, but we do that at Butler Road already. Yeah, I wouldn't take it from there, Chuck. I would take it further down. I would
Okay.
take the wherever you're org now.
yeah, I'm just using the measuring tool.
Now further
Yeah,
back east.
So Mark, are you just
yeah.
saying to cross the driveway at the base? That's essentially what you're saying?
Yeah, cross the driveway where it ends at Fleet Road.
Yeah.
And then go into the woods there, away from the driveway, and go straight back to the trail and connect where it is kind of at an angle there anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so
I just think that those stream
Going
crossings
like
that we
this?
have are not good.
Yeah,
And
but except I'd go further away, Chuck. I'd go even further. No, not like that at all.
no, well, that's the problem with the measuring tool. So,
I would go from the bend in Old Fleet Road, basically. I'd almost go straight back to the existing trail.
well, the bottom line is when Couple Park goes in, this whole thing is going to change. And I had suggested making lots of changes.
Exactly, Chuck. That's what I had in mind. That's
Okay,
what
thank
I thought.
oops.
I
But
was told,
Vanessa makes a point, but I don't, there was a lot of pushback similar to the level, I mean, I was there at some of those public meetings, similar to the level that just the Pocket Park got shut down by. There was a lot of pushback from all the folks in this development area down here who didn't want the park. So I have no idea what the park status is or where it stands, but I haven't heard boo about it I mean, it's been several years since I was at that public meeting.
well, they've been still working on it. My understanding is that there was an issue with the turtle, endangered turtle. They were working through that. And then it was just a matter of time that it's actually happening. I mean, Tara, you know better than I do.
Yeah, the permitting is still being worked on and trying to get approval from DEP. So we're still working on permits.
But it's intended to move forward. It's going to happen. Presuming,
That's
presuming we get the permits, then once the permits are done, they're going to do it.
right.
Okay. So yes, it doesn't make a lot of sense to do much more than a sign than a whole trail reroute, as per Vanessa's point, in the event that we're going to have a whole re-landscaping of this situation anyways.
Well, but and on top of the signage, which I think is good, we can try and, change the map. I'll work with GIS to get this updated. So that's one thing that hopefully will help. Maybe we can work on updating this map next after Negri. If we can do that, try and do things like that, to kind of make it work. But yeah, doing the reroute and the other issue is the way that the trail is cut. So those are three things we can do without doing a whole reroute at this point, because there will be one, like you mentioned. But yeah, I do know this has been a problem for them.
And I know it might have sounded kind of silly, but I do think we should consider putting a crosswalk on the driveway at the actual section you're supposed to cross to have a visual, because otherwise you get off and it looks like you should go down the driveway instead of going back to the brown trail on the other side.
My only concern about that, and it's not I like the idea totally, is that who's responsible for the paving of his driveway? If he paves it and resurfaces it, then we have to coordinate repainting it in the event he chooses to resurface, right? So that just becomes a bit of a headache. That's all.
Right, it had to be clear communication with that, but if it helps the problem, he might be willing to communicate it.
And I think if the township doesn't cut that little area, that should solve a fair amount of the problem. Because I remember when I walked that, there is a barrier between that trail that parallels the driveway. And, there's like high grass or, weeds and things like that. So you're automatically following that trail rather than the driveway. So, but if people think they just go straight and then go on the driveway, that's part of the trail. I think if we block off that area or they let it get overgrown, people will automatically make that left. But signage would be good as well.
And signage going both ways. I feel like when you're coming off the trail, heading back to the farm stand, when you hit that driveway, it's not as clear to get back on the trail there. And then, it's also because it's so swampy, your inclination is to stay on the driveway instead of hitting that swampy part.
That's a good point. Good point.
Okay.
Any other comments? Any other suggestions? All right. Should we move on to new business? Okay. How about if we move on to new business?
Sounds good.
Yippee.
All right. It's only been 50 minutes. All right. Tara, you have information about the trails?
Yes. Hold on one second. I just want to look here. New business paint color choices. Okay. So I had this kind of 1 and 2 I can loop in together. So I had my monthly meeting with Carl House, the Director of Public Works, about, trail maintenance and open space maintenance that's needed, as well as some, new things we're working on, like the paint blazes. So DPW is really excited to get going on this. We're trying to so we found the paint that the county uses. It's not, exactly what we have to use, but they use just like a regular paint that they get from Home Depot. It's like a bare paint exterior. It's made for the weather. They've estimated that 1 gallon, I think, gets like 5 miles of trails painted with the squares in the directional way. So now Carl is ready to start ordering the paints so that we have them. DPW, because of their new sign machine, is able to create the stencil. So we don't need to order a stencil. They have the flexible material and they can just, with the new machine, make the correct size marker. So the rectangles that you're supposed to use are supposed to be 2 inches across, 6 inches down. So they can make multiple stencils for that. That's no problem. So now we're ordering the paint. So I don't know if you all want to talk about this. We absolutely can if you want. Let me share. I looked at, from the Trails Conference, there was a file made about what are the recommended paint colors for paint blazes. And I just kind of want to show them to you with, instead of me just going ahead and making the choice. Although if you think it's like a waste, then we can, I can just go with the recommended color and that's it.
I just point out, I like all the recommended colors except for the brown earth tones. I would just keep that family of colors out since they're going to be hard to see. There'd be poor contrast if they painted on trees and stuff. It'll be very poor contrast. The rest of them I thought looked fine. And maybe some of the shades are red, but I don't want to try and get too ridiculous about
Mark,
it.
where did you see them?
But Tara sent it out in her original email.
Yeah,
I'd like to see them again, please.
I have them up here on the screen now. Can you all see the screen?
I see Bunker Hill Natural Area. I don't see paint.
Oh, okay. Hang on. I think I'm sharing. Okay, 1 second here. Let me redo. Share. I want to share my whole screen here. All right. Okay, now hang on. Let me get over here. This. I don't want to annotate. Hang on. I got too many. Oh, here we go. Can you see that?
Yep, that's the start of the
cool.
paints.
Okay, so they give you the brands along with the name of the paint and the number of the paint swatch. So this is very easy for me to give to Carl and say, okay, we need to order this much of this to start. I agree with you, Mark, 100%. I think the brown trails, anywhere we have brown trails, we need to change to another color. We can just change it to white. We can change it to, I'll show you the other colors that are here, but brown is not really going to work because painting it on the tree is going to be very difficult. I think even now having it brown is a little difficult, but on a tree it's going to be a problem. So white, obviously, we have a white color, which is just pure white. The blue, they recommend this sea to shining sea one, but these are also good alternates. So for example, if you all want to help me choose those colors, that would be great. There's only a few of them. I don't know if you want to go through each one. We definitely can, whatever you think is best.
I don't think it's necessary. I mean, this is just my personal opinion. I'm fine with delegating that out to you and to the, if we have like a contract or a particular, maybe we get a discount if we buy from the same company or something. Maybe they work with Lowe's all the time or whatever, or Home Depot, which is the Bear product. Then I don't,
Right.
I don't care between all of these, which is which, to be honest. I mean, I don't think that level we need to make the decision on. I just think broadly, as before I stated that just stay away from the ones that are hard to distinguish, particularly the brown family.
Tara,
Okay,
could you
so
just scroll down so I could see what the colors are? Thanks.
Yeah, so we got blue. As you can see, these here are blue on white, so this is not really for trees. So we would use one of the top colors up there, depending on, if we get it from Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever, that's what I guess we'll go with. Then, hold on, computer's acting crazy. Green, orange, here's orange. So this is what they recommend, this flame one here. But these are some alternates depending on if you use the Lowe's or the Sherwin-Williams or whatever. So that's what the orange looks like. Red is here. Benjamin Moore, not Benjamin Moore. Bear is what the county uses. Again, not that we have to use what the county uses, but like any examples I've shown you, that's what they use. Here's some yellow. There's pink. So for example, if you didn't want to have white instead of brown, pink is a color we could go to, but white, seems pretty easy. We have purple. Purple's an option. They have these called for long paths. They're like a teal green, but we don't really have any of those existing like as colors. Then they have colors for Highlands trails, and then we got down here is the dark colors. So, which again, I agree, I don't think we really are going to want to use. So really the only one we're looking at is changing brown. I thought we said we would change to white, but we can change it to something else. I mean, we have, like I said, we have pink here if we want to change, or we can change to one of these greens. But other than that, yeah, I can basically ask Carl where you plan on getting the paint from, and we can use that to make our paint choice. This way it's simple.
It sounds good.
Yeah, my only thing with white is sometimes white and snow can be tricky, but it's not that big of a deal.
We could change to, that's the one good thing is we're still working on the trails mapping updates, which Anne Marie and I can talk about. So we haven't, designated anything on a map yet as white instead of brown. So if anyone does not want white, like now's a good time to change that.
I think the white is better than the brown, if that's one or the other.
Yeah, white's better than brown. Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
I'm okay with switching. There's enough of a palette here that, and I don't think we're going to use up all the stuff, that if we have white and we want to go to the pink, that makes sense to me. I'm perfectly happy with that.
Okay. So I guess what I'll do is I'll talk to Carl and see which paints he can get under whatever contract we have. And if for some crazy reason, I'm sure this would not happen, if for some reason like getting the white is difficult, then I will tell him to switch to the pink or vice versa, whatever the issue is. That'll make it easy for him. John Hurling, were you trying to say something? I couldn't tell. You're on mute. Oh, you're still on mute. Okay, now you're unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Did you have a comment?
I was saying it just the brighter the colors, the better. I as far as I'm concerned, but I think it's fine to go ahead with the plan you've just laid out.
Okay, perfect. Okay, sounds good. Yeah, these colors have been tested and they apparently seem to show up very well. So, okay. All right. So then that takes care of that. So we can move forward on that and, we'll start matching that up with the updated mapping. Okay. That's all I had on that, Jim.
Excellent. Good presentation. All right. I guess that covers A and B, correct? You, we're talking with Carl. Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I do have, hold on one second. I had my monthly call with Carl. That was one big thing we talked about, but I just want to make sure I did not miss anything here. Paint, we talked about. The benches, DPW is working on getting the quote together for the backless bench, the aluminum. So hopefully we should have info on that pretty soon. What else here? I did let him know about that we will potentially need spot treatment at John Clyde Native Memorial Grasslands Preserve for what's left after the burn. There will be a second burn done as long as the weather's permitting before April 15th. But after that, any invasives that are left that are fire resistant, there are quite a few that will not burn regardless of being in the middle of on fire. So I did let him know that we'll have to do some spot treating there. And so he knows to plan for that. And there is a licensed person to do that in DPW. So that works out well. They're working on plowing right now, as you can imagine. They have a lot of work with plowing benches, and they have been working with me and with Rutgers to talk about the green infrastructure feasibility plan that we've been working on for some time. So Rutgers went out and did field work all over Franklin, and they had a lot of questions about some of the basins that the township owns, some that they don't own, some ideas for future retrofitting. So Carl's been a huge help working on that with me as well. So that kind of sums up our call from this month.
Okay,
So
very
that's
good.
it, Jim. Yep.
Tara. I wanted to sort of get in touch with you about the burn, I guess it sort of relates to a discussion that I also had with Anne Marie. We went out to Negri and looked at some problems out there as well, in addition to going to Griggstown to look at the burn. And one thing is that there were a lot of standing vegetation that was left under areas of the burn. Blackberry and multiflora rose and raspberry. The stalks still remain up above the burn. And I was wondering whether in the second burn, if they could maybe mow some of the areas where those stalks would normally be standing and do a stubble burn in those areas so we could see what happens. You know, to see whether that would be a more effective way to do the burn than what we got with Griggstown. I think we need to.
Right.
We're trying to get the whole purpose is to get rid of invasives, and we're trying to do that desperately. And then when you go there, the thing that lived was the invasives.
Well,
right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not sure with a number of the invasives, the burns are not going to get rid of them necessarily, because a number of these invasives like mugwort and blackberry and multiflora rose, they actually come up from the roots. So you can burn the stalks off, but then you'll get growth coming up from the roots again. So those might require special treatment, like herbicide treatment on those areas as well. But it may be that if we did, you know, if they mowed the area before they burned, you know, we might have a better luck at controlling them. And it seems to me like if we could get them to do that, if they do a second burn, if we get them to mow some areas beforehand that are like that, and just do the experiment and see if that has a better effect for future burns.
Right. So you did send me that email. I did follow up with George Effinger. He's our representative from the Forest Fire Service.
Yes.
So I asked him if that was a possibility to do the mowing ahead of time. So right now we are scheduled for a second burn, but he does not think he's going to have the manpower to do the stubble burn like in the season that ends in April. However, he did say that they are very open to doing that for the next time we do the burn in the next season. But for this one right now, they do have us scheduled to do another one in that field that they couldn't burn, but he had recommended doing the spot treatment on what's left. And then next time they can go ahead and do the stubble burn in a few different areas. We just have to change our request, which is easy enough. So he is aware of it. And I did bring it up to Carl, like I said, that the spot treatment is going to be necessary for sure. And the other thing he did mention is sometimes it takes a few burns to really get these invasives under control, because sometimes, I mean, there's so much in their seed bank, and they become so fire resistant that it takes quite a few shots to really, you know, take care of them. But we'll do the spot treatment after the second burn for sure. So that'll be like in May-ish. That should take care of it. And then the next time we do the burn, we can outline some areas where hopefully they'll be able to mow it first, and then we can do that experiment then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else, Chuck?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay, Tara, move along.
The next thing on the agenda is the recreation grant program from Somerset County. So Tom had mentioned putting this on the agenda, which, you know, just to kind of talk about maybe, I guess, some potential ideas from the Trails Committee for this grant. Open Space Advisory Committee is meeting on Tuesday, and this is on their agenda also to discuss, you know, some potential opportunities. But you know, as you know, the grant program came out and extended it for recreational uses for municipalities So far, Manville has received a grant, and I believe they're the only ones, but I know there are a lot of other municipalities working on it right now. So, Tom, did you want to discuss that in more detail?
Well, I guess I just wanted to make sure that we were aware of the changes and could look into packaging or how those funds would best serve us. I mean, I don't know how I was on their website and I was unable to find like any forms or any packaging or how you even submit a proposal. That was going to be my suggestion, if we could at least have a format to go by, and then figure out how that impacts our plan. Is there ways to go big and go with the north-south extent trail that has been talked about for years? I don't know, but it just seemed that we have great ideas right up until we get into the funding of them, and then that seems to be the obstacle that we can't overcome. And if there's money available, then I think that we should do everything in our power to try to get it.
Right. Yeah. I did follow up with Tom Bacino at the county to see what the actual process is for applying for the grants. So my understanding at this point is it's very similar to how it used to be many years back, which is there's no real form or application to fill out, but what we would need to do, the township in general, whatever the township decides as the project to be submitted, would have to put together a presentation, have their professionals attend a meeting of the county commissioners in executive session, and really give a presentation showing plans, cost estimates. They're looking for shovel-ready projects, so projects that are really ready to start right now. But that's really what it involves, is requesting to get on the agenda, making a presentation, and have that documentation to show exactly what the project is, how many people it will benefit, what's the cost, and some, concept plans at least. So I think that would be the starting point. But I would say that, again, as I mentioned, OSAC is meeting on Tuesday. There's no timeline for this grant. It's not like there's a deadline, so it's a rolling application. But I would say that if we have project ideas that everyone is interested in, we should forward them to Open Space for review before they submit their recommendations for any kinds of projects to the Township Council.
Well, and then I go back to making sure are we in position to even make recommendations to OSAC? Do we have any parts of the trails that need to be connected? Again, I just want to make sure that we do our due diligence. I mean, it was kind of frustrating to read about what was going on with Elizabeth Avenue and making that walkable, or it was in the Somerset paper, the online paper, the other day. I actually saved a copy, but I didn't have a chance to forward it to everybody. Apparently they're about putting more sidewalks on Elizabeth Avenue, connecting it up to, I think, Colonial Park. But it was hard for me to see what was going on there.
That's being connected to new warehouses that are going in on Elizabeth
Correct. Well,
Avenue.
I believe that's where the funding was coming from.
Yeah.
But again, to me, any funding that we can apply for, I think we should. I don't think we necessarily have the resources to even submit a project. I don't think there's anything, and I don't want to speak for anyone else on the committee, but I don't think we have any quote unquote shovel ready projects that we could just submit. And I don't know if we'd want to without having thought, if we're going to go big, let's go big. But if we're going to go small, then package up a bundling smaller projects and submitting it as one bigger proposal.
Well, there's been discussions about the north-south trail.
Correct, and that's like to me, that is this the perfect time to address that and make that a request. I mean, I think it would be a natural, but again, I'm still walking on eggshells around. I don't like to step on toes. I know others on this committee have been on it a lot longer than I have and have been in the trenches fighting for years, and I'm a relatively newcomer.
Well, I mean, and speaking as I guess, the old timer on the committee from a committee served time standpoint, I don't take any offense of you having ideas, Tom. It's nice to have new ideas on the committee and to hear what other people have to think. So my toes are fine. The problems we have, as much as I have been a big long-term proponent and still think that the North-South Trail is something we should still keep in things like our pathway and trails plan and push for. As you point out, Tom, we're nowhere near close to shovel ready for any of that. I don't know if the money can be used in a different fashion. I don't know all the restrictions, but we have a bunch of things we still would need to sort out. One of the biggest things that needs to get sorted out is the status of where things stand with DEP on our prior proposal that was submitted several years ago to DEP about some kind of sharing situation where they allow us to run our trail, our north-south trail, through 6 Mile Run property, and that the township would be involved in the creation and maintenance of whatever trail that was, and that there would be some kind of agreement there, right? We submitted that years ago. I think I've brought it up within the last year again, wondering what the heck happened to it, and I still don't know what happened to it. So that's an open question, and without answering that question, we can't really go too far there. The other issue would be like a possibility of extending along, which would be part of, I think, related to North-South Trail, would be extending the existing paved bike path on Van Cleef Road and get it all the way to Blackwell's Mills Road. But again, I wouldn't call that shovel ready. I think there's significant questions that need to be answered about routing it, and if there's any permitting issues at all, I don't know. Like, I think there's a lot of pre-questions that need to get answered for that. I'd still love to see that happen because that bike trail dead ends for not a lot of good reasons, other than 2 small spots, one house and one area that's very close to the edge of a bit of a dip and some swampy wetland type looking stuff. So, those are 2 things, but not close to shovel ready.
Yeah, no,
That's just my 2 cents.
No, and again, that's kind of what I thought we were going to end up at the end of the day, was that we just don't have the infrastructure on the committee to put these things into place. I think OSAC might be, because OSAC seems to have more resources at their disposal than we do. I know we are a subcommittee to them, but again, I just wanted to make sure that we kicked it around and made sure I would just take 8 months from now to read what Bridgewater did, or to see what, Boundbrook or Manville or Basking Ridge or Burnsville, anything in the county did, or to read that money is still available. People just haven't put applications in. So, but again, I do see and the limitations, and I just don't see a simple solution around them.
Well, I don't know if it's a resource issue for the 2 questions I've brought up about, like just finding out where the heck things stand with the DEP and whether they're willing to consider or sit down or move forward and make any progress on some type of an agreement, which was proposed. The township submitted a proposal or a letter to them outlining what we would like to try and do in 6 Mile Run. And I don't know where it's sitting on somebody's desk to DEP. I don't know if it's dead. I don't know if it needs to be resubmitted, but that shouldn't take any resources other than somebody who knows how to contact DEP and ask the right people where it sits. It's no money.
Well, and again, until we get that resolved, then that objection needs to be handled before we can even look and begin the plan to go forward.
But then the question I'd have is if we can get that answer, and then the next questions are things like, some kind of a study through a consultancy group or whatever to look at the possibilities for routing a trail through 6 Mile Run and the best way to do that in the least expensive and most amenable fashion. If that's what's needed, can this money be used for a study like that to get us closer to that?
Obviously, to me, that would be a natural. I mean, could we put that as a proposal? A feasibility study to connect the north-south trail in Somerset. I don't know.
I think from what I understand, and again, there's nothing like in writing that says exactly you can use it for this, or that. But my understanding is that it's really for open space acquisition, facilities, parking, things that are kind of infrastructural or like the purchase of land. I think you might even be able to use it for rehab and things like that, but I don't think you can use it for studies.
Okay, well,
now I could be wrong, and I will definitely follow up. But maybe it's just that no one has ever asked for that. But that's my understanding, is that it's really for, infrastructure and land.
No, I get it. Like I said, to me, it used to drive me nuts going back before Middlebush Park was what it was. And I used to read about, this is going back to 2000-ish, and Bridgewater getting open space money to put in a turf field. Basking Ridge did a turf field with open space, but it just used to gall me that money was available that other towns were taking advantage of. We at that time didn't have any turf fields, and yet we seemed to be excluded. But again, there was a lot of different reasons that at the time that I won't bore everybody with. But okay, now I thank you for putting it on the agenda. I know it seemed to get I think it seemed to be a very popular topic. So I'm glad that we at least discussed it.
Question. I mean, they're talking about shovel-ready projects. Could that money be used to subsidize, say, like some of Catalpa Park, even though it's not like 100% shovel-ready? But is that what kind of like the intent of these funds for? That are pretty much along the way.
You're on mute, Tara.
Sorry, having it on the phone is okay. My understanding is that they are for projects, related, it's expanded to include recreational uses, but it also includes, acquiring land, amenities in parks, structures, parking, things that are for recreational and open space use. So that's my understanding. The shovel ready, there's really no definition of shovel ready that's been presented to me, at least, but I think it kind of at least means, we know exactly what we want to do. We know how much roughly it's going to cost in the ballpark, and we have, some design ideas, or, I don't think it needs to be, certified by an engineer right at that point, but they want to know that the intent is there and that some studies have been done, at least, to kind of make sure it's on that path.
Tara, is there any way you can follow up with the state to find out the status of what Mark was talking about?
Yeah, actually, when Mark said that, when Mark said that, it kind of reminded me. I did make a follow-up request with Jessica Patterson at DEP and with another woman that works there, I think, when he brought this up last year. And now I just checked my email. I have not heard back. So I will follow up again. The only question I have, Mark, and I may have asked you this last time, in the electronic file that I'm looking at, do you do you know, was this a specific grant request or was it just a letter that was sent? Because I'm not finding anything here, although it could be a paper file.
I believe it might have been paper. I can,
Paper. Okay.
yeah, I can try and dig back through my paper records. I am pretty sure that it was something that was submitted when John Luce was still doing it, and it was sent by John on behalf of the township in his role as the consultant at the time.
Okay. If you happen to find anything, that would be great. In the meantime, I could still try and find out from DEP where it's at. I don't have anything in our files that say exactly what it was for, date, anything like that. So if you have any info, that would be great.
I'll do some digging.
Okay. And then the only other thing I want to let you know is that these grants, they are, for every municipality can request funding through this recreational grant. However, Tom Bacino let me know that, anytime the township or any township in Somerset County has a project that is, shovel ready and it's backed by residents and the council, that we could always make a request to the county commissioners for, a cost share or assistance or things like that if it's something that the township really wants to work through and just needs some additional help. So just something to keep in mind moving forward. I mean, they can't help with everything, obviously, but in the past, apparently, they have helped on some, they just call them special projects. They can allocate some funding, if needed and it's approved. It's got to be approved, but, it's just something to think about.
Tara, do you know if Recreation has applied for any of these grants? Because it would make sense that they would apply for it too.
Yeah, not that I know of, but they will be at the representative will be there at the OSAC meeting, so I will find out for sure. But my thought was that whatever project the township applies for, I would assume that OSAC would take, recommendations from all the different committees and maybe put forward a recommendation to the town council to come up with a project that they feel is, appropriate and good and really takes in all the interest. But we haven't gotten there yet.
Thanks.
Okay, do you want to move on to old business? Tara, you kind of went over the prescribed burn. Is there anything else? Yep.
Nothing else on the prescribed burn. I think I kind of covered it when we were talking with Chuck.
Okay, yeah, I thought so. Okay, you want to go with the trails mapping, you and Anne Marie?
Yeah, definitely. So Anne Marie and I had a virtual meeting a few weeks ago to kind of discuss some ideas about updating the map for Negri Napodi. So we thought this would be a good place to start because we do have some amenities that we can show on there. I think I showed all of you the map from the watershed at the last meeting, thinking that would be a good idea of how our mapping can go forward. So Anne Marie and I kind of talked about some great things that would be cool to have on the map, ways that we can depict them, what we liked about the watershed map and what we didn't. So the way we left that, and Anne Marie, if I miss anything, just jump in. The way we left it is that I know Anne Marie was planning on going out. This was before the snow.
Yeah, two snowstorms.
Yes. So Anne Marie is going to go out there and she's going to take a field map with her. And if I am able, we're going to try and work out so I can go too. And we're going to mark up the map. Following my meeting with Anne Marie, I then had a meeting with AT. He's our GIS person in the township's IT department. And I showed him the watershed map. I told him about what we're interested in doing and that we kind of want to use Negri as the pilot. And he thought that was a great idea. He said it's definitely possible to do it that way. If we send him the marked up map, he can put something together and then he can show it to us in a few different formats. So just a flat map, a foldable map, color, not color, he can show it to us that way. And then as a whole committee, we can be like, okay, this is what we like for the Franklin Township Trails mapping. And we're going to start with Negri. We'll update Negri map. We'll release it. And then we can start working on the other properties using that same format as a template but just putting in the correct information, you know, for that site. So we were like steaming ahead, and then of course we got, you know,
snowed out.
killed by the snow. But we will get out there and mark up the map. But the cool thing is we'll be able to show it in a very user-friendly way. This is a good chance to make sure that the routes of the trail are actually correct. We can point out some interesting destinations on the map, nice color. So it'll be a whole redo. But once we get one done and everyone's happy with the presentation of it, then we can go ahead and doing the other should be much easier.
Tara, does this watershed map have topographic features on it? Does it show elevations as well?
No, it does not.
I don't think it's elevations.
No elevations. Hold on here. Let me go. Show, where's mapping? Here we go. Mapping, watershed map example. Okay, let me share my screen with everyone just as a refresher here. Okay, can you all see this map here, the watershed map?
Oh.
So it doesn't have elevations on it, but it does have, so the kind of stuff that we liked about it was the different colors for forest versus fields and wetlands. One thing we thought we could show, and Anne Marie and I talked, is here they show you where the Stony Brook access is, but at Negri we could maybe show where the boardwalk crossings are. There's also a stand and tree of trees there. That's really important for nesting birds. So we thought maybe we could come up with like a name for that and show it on there. The kiosk, we could show the parking area, and then have the legend and maybe a little blurb about, you know, here they have all these symbols, no hunting, you know, all this kind of stuff here. We could work with that. We could present it a few different ways, and we can put the QR code on also. But the main thing is to really like take our map from being, first of all, correct anything that's incorrect. Secondly, make it much more user friendly and, you know, attractive to members of the public. And thirdly, to kind of show some interesting things that make people really want to explore the property.
Yeah, I would really like to also see a map that people could navigate with. I counter people, for example, with the old Greggstown map. It doesn't even show the entrance road on it. And, you know, I've spent several times just explaining to people, where are we on the map? And right. There are features that need to be on these maps, I think, to make it usable. I mean, I agree it should be a very nice and pretty map, but also I think it needs to have really good navigable features with distances and compass directions, among other things associated with it.
I want it to be a very user-friendly and people able, like you said, to use this to navigate around the property. So they know where to go and how to get to what they're going to see, how they're going to get to see it. Because we got a lot of birders out there and others who are not really sure what they're doing. So, and it's a great property to start with because it's so square, you know, it's so rectangular and,
right.
You know, I think it'll look nice.
What we could do too is, for Chuck's point, is so in the key here in the legend, on our map, we have a little table at the bottom that shows the distance. We can definitely keep the distances in here. So that's one thing that we can show the distances. For topographical, I could definitely ask to have the topography put on there and we can look at it and we can see, should it be on the map? Maybe it's a double-sided map and the opposite side just shows topography. So I think that's a good suggestion. It's just, we want to make sure with the mapping that we're not making it so busy that it becomes difficult to read. So maybe it's making two maps, or maybe it's just changing some of the colors around or something, but we can definitely present that to the committee and see what you all prefer.
Well, you know, that might be another thing to think about is whether you might actually have two maps for certain areas one which has, details of elevations and topographic features, and another that where you can hopefully you can still navigate with it. That is more of a simpler design.
I think this came up a couple years ago. I think we were talking about also using like trail apps, like all trails. And I just really feel like if we're gonna do a paper version, that's great, but we should definitely have like an online version because that's what people are gonna really use to navigate the trails. So maybe if we can like, I know there's a bunch of different apps out there, but if maybe we want to make sure that all of our trail maps are also on one specific site, so we can have a link to that for people. Because when we talk about people having a hard time navigating, that'll make a big difference.
We have to do that.
Definitely. Yep, we can absolutely do that for sure.
And then we should note that on the paper map to look for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know what the procedure is, but I mean, I have noticed on some of the different types of hikers trails maps that I've used on my phone, a lot of our trails are on there already. I don't know who put them there, but I think it's important to make sure that any new maps that we make, go to these whatever authorities there are that would make sure they would be on these types of maps as well.
I'm on mute. Okay. I'm hoping as long as the weather cooperates with us, that at the next meeting, maybe we can at least have a draft of the map. Now, it might not look pretty at the time. It might not have everything exactly right, but I would like to at least get something in front of you all to look at and be like, okay, this is going in the right direction. That it's going to take a little time to get it exactly right. But then once we have that template established, the updating to the other one is easy. So we are working on it. Anne Marie's been super helpful because she knows the property so well, and we are definitely working on it. And then the other thing is that I'm doing the same process for the hunting areas because our hunting maps are in need of updating and showing actually where parking areas are and where the actual boundaries are of bow versus gun hunting. So I'm also working with AT on that. The Ag Advisory Committee is really helping me out with that. Just to kind of make sure that I'm showing the right, spots and the correct boundaries and everything. So we had another virtual meeting on that, and AT is working on updating those as well. So just so you're aware.
Since we're talking about Negri, I don't want to jump it, but I'm looking at the agenda. I don't see it on here. I just shared some pictures with some members of the committee. Apparently, I think it was in conjunction with the natural gas pipeline that runs through Negri, is they had cut a swath about 25 to 30 feet wide from one end of Negri straight through the other. And it's huge. And it's quite remarkable. And like I said, it traverses the entire property. And it's a huge swath of land. So now all that vegetation is flattened out. And my concern is that it looks like a huge, wide new trail right through Negri. And I'm wondering if we want to do something about it. And maybe I'm just afraid that people are going to start traversing it because it's so big and it looks like a new trail. I mean, it's 30 feet wide of flattened vegetation. That if people are going to start using it as a trail, and maybe we should think about maybe when the snow is melted, whenever that happens, putting up like a signpost or something saying this is not a trail, or just to prevent people from walking in and making it a trail. I just don't know if everyone else has seen this disaster out there, or maybe disaster is too strong a word, but it's striking. And it's from one end of the property, a huge swath of destruction from one end of the property to the other. I mean, could we put something to prevent the, like a sign or something to prevent the public from using it as a trail, this huge 30-foot, 25-foot wide swath that's right through the whole property now? And how does this happen that we would never hear about this? I mean, I was just out there hiking and all of a sudden I see this huge path of destruction through the entire trail, the entire property.
Anne Marie, when did you notice that?
Well, it was before all the snow. Pre-snow, a few weeks, maybe a few weeks prior to the snow.
Okay.
And I told Chuck and Diana went out there and looked at it with me also, and it's huge. It's a huge swath of destruction through the entire property.
Now you're saying it looked like it's part of like a pipeline?
Well, underneath it, I believe, because I traversed the whole thing, walked the whole thing. There was these 2 yellow discs in the field, and they're natural gas pipeline discs about this big. And they were right in the middle of a path of destruction. And it just kept going to the very end. And as you get to Skillman's Lane, there are 2 yellow gas pipelines that come out like, they're hooks on the other side of the street. And you can just see them keep going. So I'm assuming it's from the natural gas pipeline.
Well, maybe it was the pipeline company that mowed it. I guess the question is, are they going to keep mowing it?
Right.
I do think that area will grow up pretty quick this spring. And you might not have very much time where you really need to try to keep people off of it. But if they're going to keep mowing it, then that's a real problem.
I mean, it's a huge, wide thing from one end of it's huge. I mean, I was so disheartened and shocked when I saw it because I've never seen anything like that in any of our trails before. Yeah. And I mean, it was just unbelievable. And thank God it was during the winter and not during the bird nesting season. It would have been disastrous, just disastrous.
Well, we certainly need to know who did it and what their intentions are for the future. So
Tara, is that something you can help us with?
Sorry?
As I think Tara, that's something you can help us with.
I did not get any notice of that. I was just as shocked when Anne Marie said, but I can look into it and find out what the situation is and why.
Thank you.
And just to see if this is going to be an ongoing thing, because I mean the destruction is huge. I mean.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would be very bad for that to be there during nesting season.
I mean, it's so huge. I mean, and I am worried about people using it as a trail because they're just going to keep it's not good for the ecology of that place. We always talk about reducing trails so we don't have a lot of carryover of invasive species into these pieces, and I don't know, it's disturbing.
I was surprised to go to Negri it's in December and like to see that how much hunting was happening there, and it was really only open on Sunday. Like
that's it.
So
they're still hunting around you on Sunday. So
yeah, but that's the same. The 2 biggest ones are Griggstown and Negri. That's always been the case.
Okay, I knew Griggstown. I didn't realize Negri too.
I'll try to forward the pictures to everybody.
Well, we have a different policy on firearms hunting this year than we have in previous years. In that, in previous years, the grassland areas were no hunting zones, and this year they've been designated as hunting zones. But most hunters
I don't think that's correct, Chuck. There's always been hunting at Griggstown and Negri.
There's been
not in the grassland area, Mark.
There's definitely been hunting at Griggstown and Negri.
I agree, but it's in the forested areas, and those forested areas in previous years were marked out as the hunting zones. This year is different, and the grasslands are now designated as firearm hunting zones as well.
I don't, okay. I mean, I'd have to go back and see documentation. I don't recall that distinction.
I'm pretty sure of it. I've been trying to look into this issue because, among other things, at Griggstown, before the snows, we were getting hikers out there on a daily basis, a lot of them. And, you know, probably more now because of the COVID situation, and people are looking for places to hike. And the way the rules are displayed now is that for the firearm season, which was extended from originally firearm season was a 6-day period in December, and then from January to late February. But now this year, it was from December 1st, was it, or December 6th, all the way to January 16th or 19th. I can't remember. You know, we were going out to Griggstown quite a lot the last few months, and just to check attendance, and you were getting hikers on weekdays in addition to Sundays, and there were quite a few of them. I mean, it was not unusual to find 4 or 5 cars in the parking lot at various times during the day, and these were dog walkers and hikers, and you know, so. I don't know. I think we need to examine this issue and think about it.
I think the hunting at the grasslands. So it's not that the grasslands have changed from non-hunting to hunting zones. It's that the property in its entirety is supposed to be closed, Griggstown and Negri, for firearm season. So that this year was January 1st to February 20th. And that is really just for safety reasons, because we have a lot of permitted gun hunters on those properties. So it's only closed for that period of time. We do get some complaints about people saying, oh, you know, I should be able to go there during firearm season, but it's only closed for those few weeks, and all of the other properties are still open. And really it's because of, you know, for safety. It's really for the concern of the safety of people.
Well, I understand that. What I'm saying is that if you really want to restrict the area to, you know, I got into this with Bob Bornlocker at the last open space meeting. You know, he was saying, he got riled up and saying I should report all these people to the police that were out there during firearm season. And Bob, you've got a camera out there, and you can go see how many people are there, and you can actually find the license plates. Dog walkers and hikers are not paying attention to these new regulations, I guess.
Well, isn't there I know there's a gate on the driveway at Griggstown. Is there not one at the parking lot on Negri as well? Because they should just close the gate. Just close the gate and be done.
Well, that's where the hunters park.
Well, you know.
There's no gate at the Canal Road entrance to Griggstown, but you know, I think that the solution is, if you want to exclude hikers and dog walkers from that area during that time, you just put a very simple sign at the end of the driveway before you make a right turn in the parking lot of Griggstown, and just say closed to public January 1st to whatever, in big letters, one just simple sentence, and then if you want to enforce it, go ahead. I don't care, but
yeah, we do have signage up. We have a sign on both in the parking areas of both places that says and shows the area, you know, says when it is closed to the public. But we also want to make sure people know that it is open on Sundays as well.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's
well, I mean, I know the sign, Sarah. It's just people are still going there. They're not reading the sign, or they're ignoring it or whatever. But so,
and that's the thing.
So Tara, is it for hunting? Are the grasslands? Do they prefer grasslands to the wooded areas? Because I'm wondering about like all the other open space acquisitions we have that we don't have trails on yet. Like, is it, are they preferring the grasslands, or is it something that we could over time possibly transition away from existing trails to open spaces that don't have trails on them to have more options for hiking and such?
Well, so for the gun hunting, for firearm season, you know, there's a boundary limit, which is 450 feet from any occupied structure. So that does dictate where we can have, you know, gun hunting. There's some of our open space properties that we can't have any firearm hunting because it doesn't meet the criteria. And we're definitely not shutting down any properties during bow hunting. So that's still going on while the trails are open and everything. It's really just those two properties because there are these large open areas and there are people all over the place. And so it's like just for safety, because we have permitted hunters at both places. And they're going religiously, they're going daily to hunt. So that's, you know,
I get that.
That's really the main cause. Yeah. Now there will be new areas if they go into hunting inventory. We can definitely talk about, you know, moving forward, looking to see where the trails are located and how any hunting would, you know, impact that. So that's something we can keep on the horizon. But yeah, the closing of Negri and Griggstown, we don't get a lot of complaints, but we do get some complaints, and it's always something that we're kind of bouncing, you know, talking about. But really, it's a true safety issue. And those are the only two properties that are closed in the entire township for firearm hunting. Every other open space property is still open.
Yeah, you're correct. I mean, it's
Well, some of the trails are closed for bow and arrow hunting, right? I mean,
no, bow hunting, all areas where they do bow hunting, they're open on weekdays. You're supposed to wear orange if you're not a hunter.
Right, okay.
And people don't do that either. You know, I keep asking people, please wear orange during those days.
For some reason, what Al said before is true, and I don't know why. We have changed signage. We've put up more signage. Even when we had the prescribed burn, they had signage in the road, in the place, next to the road, and people still come in. It's like, I don't know what it is about signage. If people just don't want to read it. I don't know what's going on.
Well.
Yeah.
That's all I have for that.
Yeah.
Okay, hey, Tara, I have a question. I'm just going back through old minutes and I see a status update of our new committee member, the application from Ava Joseph.
No, I followed up again to see if anything was received. It hasn't been. I left a message for Ava a while back, and then I was supposed to follow, and I didn't talk to her, but in my head, I was supposed to call her today, and I just did not do it today. So I will call her again tomorrow and just say, if you're submitting it, we're not getting it. And I don't know why, but I'll follow up on that again.
Thank you. All right, well, I have 8:50. Do we want to do anything with the Pathways and Trails plan tonight?
I'm tired.
As the most vocal,
really.
normally the most vocal advocate, I would suggest we delay it till the next meeting.
I second that motion, even though it's not a motion.
Second that emotion.
Is there anything else? I guess, you know, let's put this on ice until next meeting. And I think that's about it. Anything else, please? Any?
I know that Chuck had put out an email about looking at like connecting, you know, county space and township space. I know we'll talk about that in when we get to the next meeting. But I was talking with Chris Kelly, who former Trails Advisory Committee member, and now the chair of County Open Space. And definitely, I definitely think, there's a lot of potential there for us to work with the county. And I know Tara, you have all these great connections as well. But I think that kind of like talking about the North-South Trail earlier, working with county, Chuck, with your ideas, I think that I'm really excited about some of those possibilities. So I just wanted to
That's great.
say that out loud.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of information about where we should put these trails at the moment. I actually started going out with Ted Chase in that area a few weeks ago, and we were actually going out trying to find record trees as well as anything else in the area and start measuring them. But then back problems and the snow have sort of gotten in our way. I really don't have any suggestions about where these trails should be, and I'd like to be able to explore that and try to figure that out. And if anybody wants to come out with us when we can do it, I think it'd be a really fun thing to do, and I think it would be really a good thing for our open space and our, as well as for parks and recreation.
I think that I would just suggest like the sooner we can to like look, take a look at the county's the trails master plan, look at what their recent acquisitions of open space, ours, and like I know Tara, you're going to be the best person to kind of be the liaison for that, but just to kind of get that dialogue going soon, so we can maximize those things, because if we can have those connections, and then we push them on what's on their master plan, and that's going to help us with our master plan as well. That'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. I just wrote down as a note to look at the county's walk, bike, and hike plan. So I'll look at that, compare it with what we have going on and what's new there, and then maybe we can kind of get some meeting or some kind of discussion at least going.
I did notice in sort of looking at these at these county arrangements that the county has an environmental center at the north end of the county. I think it would be great if we had an environmental center at the south end of the county as well, which would be in our township. But the other sort of interesting things that come up in trying to pursue this is that county open space seems to be managed more by county parks and recreation. Is that the case, Tara, or is that they seem to be supervising this property or managing the open space properties?
So wait, let me say. So you're saying county? Say it one more time. I'm sorry, just I think I lost in there.
The county open space properties seem to be under the jurisdiction of county parks and recreation.
Yeah. So a lot of the county properties and open spaces are they have their county open space advisory committee, which oversees the acquisitions and all that gets forwarded to the county commissioners. Part of the Parks Commission staff is under the jurisdiction of the county's engineering department, and that's for infrastructure improvements and repairs and maintenance and construction. The daily operations at the parks, as well as the trail maintenance, that is under the park rangers and commission. So it's kind of split the duties, but they do interact a lot. And someone from engineering does sit on the open space advisory committee. Someone from engineering serves as the parks engineer. So they have that overlap, but yeah, it's kind of like a dual responsibility.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking that if we tried to put together a coordinated effort like that, we might want to involve our parks and recreation in these discussions as well. I think, from my interactions with Bo Burtis and Gloria Fidecaro, that they seem interested in promoting recreational use on our trails, in addition to our open, athletic parks and so on. The other thing that I noticed in looking at these county areas was that many of them seem to be leased out to hunting clubs, or to hunters under like 5-year leases, and so there's some sort of different arrangement that they have with respect to hunting in these areas than what we have with respect to hunting on our trails. And that might be something that needs to be thought through as well.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
anyway.
I'm not really, yeah, the county, how they choose to manage their hunting program, I'm not exactly sure of the details, like it, but I can look into it. I'm sure there definitely are some differences. I know they do work with gun clubs and things like that, so yeah.
Mhm. So, well, thank you for thinking about it. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
So Chuck, if you ever do decide to go do some trailblazing, if you can just put an email out, because I'm showing you some time.
hey, come on down.
Always on the weekend.
It's a lot more fun when you have somebody with you who's
Absolutely.
So
yeah, just give a shout out, and who knows, I might show up, or other people may be able to make it as well.
I hope you all come. So
Yeah.
that'd be great.
I'm interested too, Chuck.
Great, John.
Well, hey, you retired guys, just try to make it on a weekend, okay? Some of us will.
Yeah.
Sure. No, we understand that. I think John and Tom and I are probably the most flexible people around. And just really, I'm amazed that all of you folks who are still working full time are able to do all the work you do. It's, you're awesome.
Please.
Bring your snowshoes, maybe.
Yeah.
I've been out on mine a lot.
Yeah.
Me too.
I'm envious.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Could I move to adjourn?
Yes.
Yeah?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
All right.
All right.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.